In this lecture, we talk about terrorism, terrorist attack. In the last lecture, we talk about conventional war. Then whether terrorism is a kind of war, in fact, it depends on the definition of war. But usually, we consider those large-scale terrorist attack, well-planned terrorist attack like Lime attack, they are a kind of war. But very small-scale or lone wolf style attack, like lone wolf that is 野狼式, that 獨狼式 attack, not well-planned terrorist attack, whether they are a kind of war. It depends on the definition, and there's no concluding comments among international relations on whether this kind of lone wolf, small-scale, not well-planned terrorist attack, whether they are war. No conclusion. We have not yet come to a conclusion. Then what is terrorism? Terrorism is the central feature of terrorism is it is a form of political violence that aims to create its objective through creating a climate of fear and apprehension. Terrorist attacks by themselves, even though large-scale terrorist attacks like 9/11, cannot defeat the enemy by themselves by terrorism. No, terrorists cannot directly defeat the enemy. No. The main purpose for terrorist attack is to create a climate of fear and apprehension, so as to force your enemies to accept your demands, to make some concessions, in order for those enemies to escape from this climate of fear and apprehension. So terrorist attack, terrorism, the main element of terrorism is element of surprise. Element of surprise. Why people are haunted by the fears of fear and apprehension, are haunted by the climate of fear and apprehension caused by terrorist attacks, because terrorist attacks so surprised that people lost their life unexpectedly, very suddenly. I can compare terrorist attack to COVID-19. And in fact, the death rate and death toll of COVID-19 compared to other diseases like cancer, like flu, is not horribly high. The death toll of flu is around 0.02% to 0.03% each year. And then each year, America, there are around 20 to 30,000 people die each year due to flu. COVID-19, of course, the death toll is around 100 times higher than flu, and death toll is around maybe 10 times higher than flu. But compared with cancer, its death toll death rate is around 50%. Its death toll is much higher than COVID-19. Then why people around the globe are so afraid of COVID-19? Because cancer, we know that each year there are many people get cancer. Flu, each year there are many people get flu. But COVID-19, this disease exists very surprisingly, suddenly it exists. And suddenly it spread to different parts of the world. So this element of surprise is the root of the fear of COVID-19. The same, terrorist attack. Each year, in fact, the death toll of Lime attack is around 2,000 people, much less than the death toll of flu in America annually. But why people have such a long-lasting memory of Lime attack? Why people were so afraid of terrorist attack? It's because of this element of surprise. Terrorist attack, unlike war, of course, as I mentioned in the last lecture, there's some restrictions on the targets of attack of war. Usually, conventional war, can only attack armed force, military targets. It is, according to international law, it is banned to attack some civilian targets. But terrorism, the attack is indiscriminate. Civilians are targets of attack by terrorists. This is because the nature of terrorist attack is to create a climate of fear and apprehension. So even you are ordering paper, suddenly you are killed by a bomb, then everyone in the country may be afraid that they are the targets of terrorist attack next time. Because you don't know who and where you will be targeted by a terrorist attack. You don't know. So this can create a sphere of fear and apprehension. And particularly, in order to enlarge this fear and apprehension, terrorists usually attack symbols of power and prestige. Say the terrorists attacked the World Trade Center, the Pentagon. World Trade Center is the symbol of capitalism in America. Pentagon is the symbol of military power of America. It attacks in order to enlarge the fear of the climate of fear and apprehension. Then also terrorist attack relate to kidnap some famous people, prominent businessmen, senior government officers. That is called assassination. This is also for propaganda purpose, in order to enlarge the effect of fear and apprehension. Terrorist attack usually portrayed as anti-government, but there are some form of state terrorism. I'll talk about state terrorism later. Why terrorism usually wear like this? Usually they are covered by a mask, because the purpose is to create fear and apprehension, to look horrible for them. That's the same as wearing a scream mask, a ghost mask during the Halloween, to create terror. Okay, victims for terrorist attack. Because terrorist attack mostly targets civilian people. So, ordinarily speaking, we say terrorist attack innocent civilians. But for terrorists, some of them may consider those civilians not innocent. They are still part of those evil structure. Say London attack, those for those radical Islams, they may consider those working in World Trade Center part of the capitalist structure. This capitalist structure corrupts the world, so they deserve to die. And those working in Pentagon, of course, for them, are working for the American government. American government is the symbol of evil, so they deserve to die. Then, of course, usually terrorist attacks are conducted by non-state actors like those terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda, ISIS. But sometimes there are some state-sponsored terrorism. The most famous state-sponsored terrorist attack is this attack. We call it Lockerbie disaster. A flight from Heathrow to New York JFK Airport in 1988. That is a Pan Am-borne 747, and the flight number is Pan Am 103. This flight, about half an hour after it took off, suddenly a bomb exploded in the plane, and then all people died in the plane. All passengers died, and the explosion happened around the Lockerbie area. That is a small town in Britain. Then who set the bomb inside that plane? After investigation, is a spy of the Libya government. He is Gaddafi. When you study comparative democratization, you know who he is. Was the leader of Libya. Of course, later he was overthrown by the Arab Spring. And this is another issue. But this spy usually was considered why he set a bomb in this plane. It is because this spy was ordered by the Libya government to set the bomb inside this plane. So this is one of the most famous incidents of state-sponsored terrorist attack. Terrorist attack is somehow different from conventional warfare, because conventional warfare is a warfare between two conventional forces, but terrorist attack is the weapon of the weak. It do not aim at prevailing against your enemy. It just want to create a climate of fear and apprehension. And then terrorist attack. The successfulness of terrorist attack is to make self-defense difficult or impossible. In fact, it is very easy to defend a terrorist attack if intelligence available, if, say, the security system is well arranged. Say nowadays it is very hard to hijack a plane. After Lime attack, the number of plane hijack dramatically retired. Why? Because the security in airport, has been upgraded after the Lime attack. In the past, the security system, the security checking of airports, particularly in those American airports, the security check in American airports a lot as well planned or well arranged as today's. In the past, even those people who carry a gun, they can enter the airport. Now, in fact, in American airports, for those, especially for those planes who are internal planes, not international planes, internal planes, usually you do not need to go through X-rays, so this kind of security devices. No. So people can easily carry a gun to the plane. Now, of course, there are a lot of security check. So it is harder to conduct a plane hijack anymore nowadays. So terrorist attack, the target is to make self-defense difficult or impossible. Unlike conventional war, it is, in fact, you expect one side expect its enemy to defend against your attack. So for conventional war, both sides, their target is how to overwhelm against the opponent's self-defense. But for terrorists, their aim is to how to bypass those self-defense, because even minimum efforts of self-defense can prevent the outbreak of terrorist attack. Terrorist attacks somehow are quite a lot of common features. Terrorist attacks have lots of common features with guerrilla warfare. They are asymmetrical warfare. That is the warfare of the weak. And both of them emphasize on eroding enemies' will to resist. Those attack, guerrilla wars and also terrorist attack, both of them have low chance to directly defeat the enemy. No chance, because they are asymmetric warfare, and then one side is very weak and then the other side is very strong. But in fact, this kind of warfare, these two kinds of warfare, their aim is to make the enemies, or better say, is to erode enemies' will to resist. When the enemy face huge amounts of death toll, they may say, okay, I don't want death anymore, so I make concession to you. I accept your demands. Is to erode these two warfare is to erode enemies' will to resist. And they are also part of guerrilla or so-called insurrectionary war. But of course, there are some difference. Terrorist attack. They place on highly publicized atrocities. They place on visible or some kind of propaganda. They have, because terrorist attack, unlike guerrilla warfare is still a kind of warfare. It still would like to defeat the enemy, but defeat the enemy by forcing the enemy to accept your demand, because if the enemy continue fighting, then they may face heavier death tolls. And these heavier death tolls the opponents cannot bear, so they decide to accept your demand. Terrorist attack is different. Terrorist attack, by those attack themselves, they cannot create a death toll which is unbearable for the opponents. So the opponents have to make some concession. No. The death toll of terrorist attack itself are very limited. Like Nightmare attack, this is in fact the historically high, the historically most heaviest historically heaviest death toll score in one terrorist attack. That's Nightmare attack, is around 2,000 people. No terrorist attack in history can lead to a death toll higher than 2,000 people. No. So terrorist attack cannot force the enemies to make concession, to accept your demands, simply by causing a lot of death tolls. Guerrilla warfare aims to force your enemies to make some concession, to accept your demands by causing a huge death toll for the opponents, for the enemies. Terrorist attack, no, they cannot do so. But terrorist attack, it want to make the enemies to make concessions by creating a sphere of fear and anxiety. So highly visible and very highly publicized atrocity is very important, so that everyone in the society afraid of the terrorist attack, and then they force the government to make some concession. And terrorist attack is covert in nature, very secret. The numbers of people engaged in terrorist attack must be very small. The number of people engaged in the terrorist attack must be very small, very restricted. Otherwise, as I mentioned, if there's some intelligence telling the government that a group of people is planning terrorist attack, then the government can easily stop the terrorist attack. Guerrilla warfare is different. Guerrilla warfare needs the support of mass base of popular support. Why? Because if everyone in the society join the guerrilla attack, then it can ambush, it can attack the enemy force in different places. So the enemy force, its death toll will increase because everyone in society joined the guerrilla warfare. So it leads to mass base of popular support. Okay, then there are two types of terrorist attack. The first one is to seek for fundamental changes in the society. There are like revolutionary terrorist attack or political ideology or religious terrorist attack. The most famous one is Al Qaeda or ISIS, Islamic State. The purpose is to strike for an ideology, to achieve an ideology or for religious reasons, like the Al Qaeda, the ISIS. They would like to evade the evil force in the world, so as to establish a purely Islamic state, a state which, for them, complies with the teaching of the Quran. That is the Bible of Islam. And the other one is some terrorist attack with international ambitions. Usually they are separatist in nature. They would like to seek for independence of one place on the territory. The aim is limited. They don't want a fundamental change of the society. They just seek for independence. The best example is IRA of Northern Ireland, or ITA, that is here. The Basque region in Spain. Basque region has a different language from the other parts of Spain. So this region seeks for independence. Of course, historically it's an independent part. It's very late, around 17th century. It was conquered by Spain. So this region would like to seek for independence. Okay, so there are two forms of terrorist attack. The first one is seek for fundamental change in society, and the second one is limited aim, that is mostly seek for independence of a part of the society, of a country. Okay, then we talk about strategies of terrorism in the next lecture.